There is so much history at the location of the Macy's department store in downtown Brooklyn here on Fulton Street, and so many cherished memories from longtime customers.
I'm very sad because I've been shopping here since we were a little girl with my parents, with my grandparents. So it's a sad moment.
This building has been here on Fulton Street since 1885, when it was first the Abraham and Straus department store, otherwise known as A&S. But now it is on the list of 66 Macy's across the country deemed underproductive that will be closing in the first quarter of 2025. There were no mannequins or clothing displays in the large front windows, few shoppers on the main floor inside for a Saturday afternoon, and just one sign saying that this Macy's was closing, but customers can still go to the Kings Plaza Macy's in Marine Park, miles and miles away.
Forget about it!
Well, back in my retail days, I worked for a company called Federated Department Stores. Now, if you're not familiar with Federated was a big conglomerate of a bunch of department stores all linked together. The companies included Burdines, Abraham and Straus, and of course the iconic Macy's, and many others. In time, they were merged downward. In other words, slowly each of the other department stores were being phased out and being replaced with Macy's, to the point where the entire company now is just Macy's. In fact, it's no longer Federated Department Stores. My first jump into it, and this was right before Federated got into Macy's, I was working at Abraham and Straus. And I was working at one of their newer stores in Manhattan, at the Manhattan Mall. Now, if you're not familiar with the history of Abraham Straus has been here, used to be in here forever. One thing, great store, great people. The boss that I worked for, my store manager, was a fantastic manager for a store manager. You don't get store managers like that anymore. He knew everybody's name. I mean, literally. I mean, we had something like, oh God, 400, at least 400, 500 people working in the store annually, a little bit more during like the holiday season. And he knew everybody's name. He went around, he'll come around and, he'll say, hey, Madman, how are you? And he'll know everybody, know everything, and ask you how your day was and stuff like that. His store meetings were amazing when it came to it, because one thing working for Federated is that basically when it switched to Macy's had a habit of, creating like a one big show. It became a little bit not personal, whereas Abraham and Straus was a little bit more personal to that situation. That manager, he went off and became, I think it was a CEO of Barney's for a while after he left Abraham and Straus. But nevertheless, Abraham Straus was around for a long time until they were absorbed into Macy's. Their flagship store was in Brooklyn on Fulton Street. It was a great store. It was there for a long period of time, and people enjoyed that. It was a great store, like I said, great company to work for. Fast forward to present day. The Fulton store became a Macy's. And what has happened now, and if you've heard the story that basically Macy's is shutting down stores this year, about 66 stores, something like that. On the chopping block is Fulton Street, Brooklyn. And it's a shame. And the thing is that basically it's going to be shutting down soon. A lot of people are going to be out of work. Supposedly there's going to be another retailer moving in because the building itself has been sold to someone else. And there's another ridiculous story, and then we'll talk about that toward the end. But the thing about it is that Macy's still hasn't figured out what the problem is with them. of course, brick and mortar, they've had their issues. Macy's is not the only one, with the exception of a company like TJ Maxx. TJ Maxx has been doing fantastic business. Why? Because they, the way that they're putting their product out. Some people, they criticize TJ Maxx, but TJ Maxx is doing a good business, better than Kohl's. But we're going to read this. This is from The Gothamist, and it goes into what has happened. Macy's Brooklyn store, once the iconic Abraham and Straus, is closing. Macy's is closing 10 stores in the New York, New Jersey area, including its storied Fulton Street location, as part of the company's effort to turn a profit after years of slouching sales. Macy's took over the historic Fulton Street store in 1994 when it merged with Abraham and Straus department stores, which city records show built the building at 422 Fulton Street in 1920, and which long maintained its own flagship location there. It was once a part of the department store row along other retail giants that have long since fallen. Yeah, I remember the big days, the S. Klein days, the Corvettes, and stuff like that. There's a whole history, and people don't talk about them. We had some great retailers back in the day. Besides Woolworths, you always hear about Woolworths, but you don't hear about the S. Klein. You don't hear about the Mays. You don't hear about Corvettes or Gimbals anymore, like to that situation. These were big stores, and they did the business. People went from store to store to find what they needed, especially during the Christmas season. But Macy's, also founded in New York City, has struggled to adapt its department store business model in the age of online retail. Investors have long suspected the value of its real estate is worth at least as much as the company's retail business. Macy's sold the Brooklyn location to a group of investors early in December that said it could eventually become a location for experience-driven retail like Legoland, according to reports at the time. Now, here's the one thing I just want to bring up at this part. Unfortunately, Macy's, in their stupidity, they basically unloaded this property for next to nothing. They let it go for about, what was that? The Fulton Street store is about 440,000 square foot. Which basically, that would roughly, if you sold it at the, what you're supposed to sell it for, it was at least $250 per square foot. That's a nice sizable chunk. Macy's sold it for about $50 a square foot, or equating to $23 million. The property was worth a lot more than that. But unfortunately, again, and knowing Macy's the way I know it, again, they dropped the ball on this. I mean, honestly, they really did drop the ball. Continuing on, in a statement this week, Macy's said it anticipated the closings across the country would happen sometime after clearance sales lasting 8 to 12 weeks in total, which is pretty much going into February. Macy's announced the closure of 66 stores, including the ones in Sheepshead Bay, Elmhurst, Staten Island. Staten Island store, I know it's the furniture store. I know that for a fact. It's only going to be the furniture store. The Bronx, Rochester, Nassau, and Orange, New Jersey. The company did not say what would happen to the workers at these stores. Depending on their use of service or whatever, they could, and if there were union stores or not, they may get transferred into other branches or basically let go. That's what's going to end up happening on that. The older veterans will be offered options, either transfer to another store or retire altogether. Closing any store is never easy. Tony Spring, chairman and chief executive officer of Macy's, said in a statement, "We're closing underproductive Macy's stores to allow us to focus our resources and prioritize our investments in our go-forward stores where customers are already responding positively to a better product offering and elevated service." The company used the term "go forward" to describe 350 locations that will remain open. It said it ultimately closing about 150 stores over a 3-year period. Elected officials bemoaned the closing of Macy's in Brooklyn and impact on shoppers and workers. It's going to hurt the neighborhood. I mean, yeah, they're going to bring Legoland in. I mean, how much is that going to produce into that neighborhood? You know, you need shopping. That's the problem. Shopping has been dying off, especially, you know, the older stores on there, because basically they haven't been able to adapt. It's a sad day for Brooklynites who have made countless of memories here. Councilman Lincoln Ressler wrote on social media, "We'll push to ensure this iconic space continues to maintain a retail presence." According to the Brooklyn historian Ron Schweiger, the closing of Macy's Fulton Street location completes a series of department store closures that started in the 1950s and accelerated in the 1980s along Fulton Street. Along Fulton Street were major department stores, he said, like listings EJ Corvettes, Martin's, May, McCrory's, A.I. and Son. All these were department stores, all lining Fulton Street. Holding companies, Federated Department Stores, of which Abraham Straus had been a founding member, ultimately consolidated many of these stores under the Macy's brand. Federated closed Abraham Straus and turned it into Macy's and has been never the same, Schweiger said. "My wife was fit to be tied because it was our favorite. It was the most wonderful department store." For someone who has worked in 3 divisions of the company of Federated, I could tell you this. Each of the stores the companies that I worked in were iconic in itself. When Abraham Straus shut down, that hurt the industry. Why? Abraham Straus had its own identity when it came to it. This is the same thing with S. Klein, same thing with Mays, same thing with Corvettes. I've always said when Federated absorbed Abraham Straus was not a good idea. You know, it had, like I said, it had its own style. You know, you can't compare Abraham Straus to Macy's. You can't compare Macy's to Gimbel's or to Corvettes or to Saks Fifth Avenue. There's major differences. Each had their own identity. They had their customer. Even though some of them were the same customers that were going from Macy's to Abraham Straus to Corvettes, all these stores. You know, that's when business was ran good. You knew where to go. You knew what you needed. You know, you knew the prices that you're going on. You knew, if you were looking for a particular style, you knew where to go. And that's the problem, is basically the way merchandise is being merchandised. You know, the type of, I mean, last I heard from friends of mine, the juniors department at Macy's is not as good as it used to be. The shoe department, which that was one of the divisions I worked in, is not the same as it used to be. You know, the last time I was with the company, I was working in the shoe division. And, you know, I helped build the comfort division of one particular branch. And I tell you, I was invited by vendors, the vendors of these companies, to a lot of the conventions where they introduced new product to the Federated Corporation, or the time when I was there, it was Macy's. And the people that were the heads on it knew my name. They knew my name directly because basically I didn't spare the 2 cents to the situation. You know, I said, you know, this is what's needed. This is what needs to be done when it comes to it. I'm on the front. See, the thing about it is, and this is why experience, merit touts over DEI. Knowing your customer is very important because you know what they're shopping for. You know what their sizes are. You know the style, the designs that they're looking for on a daily basis. When you basically turn everybody into robots that just literally just there, you know, that, you know, they're there to pick up a paycheck, and most of the time they're not even doing their job. They're just sitting around all day. You know, if you ever gone into any department store, not only Macy's and most of the others, you don't have that personalization. If you want personalization, you went to the personal shopper, which, personal shopper ain't going to see you there for just one or two items. They want you to spend, $500, $1,000, $5,000 with them. That's how they make their paycheck. They don't make a paycheck for $29.99 purse or $69.99 purse, however you want to put that to that situation. But the person on the floor, the salesperson, is going to sit there, and I'll give you example shoes, and say, okay, your size 8.5. Okay, you're looking for something like a nice pump, for a wedding to situation, and and the salesperson know exactly where to go, what brands to bring out to the person, and let me tell you, at the time when I was with the company, when I was with Federated, we used to keep lists. We had books, client books, for our customers that were our constant, the ones that always came in constantly. They came to your department always. And we would keep name, address. We would send invitations. We would send coupons out. We did all this. Today, you don't even do that really anymore. There's no personalization. They do most of that through the credit cards themselves. Or if they have the credit card, they send it through the mailers with, when they send the catalogs out and everything. And the catalogs are not like it used to be. It's not like a Sears catalog. It's just that standard one that they send out. They put in the newspapers and stuff like that. And they don't even do a full one anymore. Or they might send something in your bill. That's the other thing. Is that, hey, listen, come on in, 10% off on there. We'll give you an extra 10, 25% off on there. That's how we'll do it. And all you got to do is look at the commercials. Look at the commercials themselves of the way what product they're showing. Then go over and look at TJ Maxx. Look at TJ Maxx and the products they're selling. Yeah, some of their stuff are from the other department stores that left what they call, excessive stuff. But also TJ's buying some stuff from vendors themselves. And I think they've done a pretty darn good job. Now, here's the other half of it to the point with TJ, is they need to get better with their customer service skills. That's the truth. It's the same thing with Kohl's. Kohl's still haven't found their identity yet. They have their own brand names. They got Vera Wang and a couple of others to that point. But the thing is that you look at the product and they just keep shifting it and shifting it and shifting it. I mean, they're putting I think it's a Kids R Us, or if they've done it already, that they're leasing out a section of the store for the baby products and the kids products on there. One thing early on with Kohl's, a big thing about it was clearance. People were flying into Kohl's for the clearance stuff, especially for the kids. For the kids and the shoes. But see, the thing is that everybody copies everyone. And that was the end, toward the end of my retail stint. Especially with the end of my Macy stint and, the other companies I was with. Was that everybody was copying each other. You would have brands like White Mountain, which was a great brand of shoe that Macy's, I don't know if Macy's still has that brand. And they made some good products. And then you saw Payless and about a dozen other stores, which, okay, I have to say, White Mountain has a different division that deals business with them, but they're thrown out at that. Now, some products that White Mountain does make is exclusive to Macy's and certain department store ends, and vice versa. But there are certain categories of shoes that basically, one to the other, and it's all the same. And that's a problem. And I did mention that to, and I spoke to someone from that company, and I said, this is the way things are. But the thing about it is, someone wants something that's going to pop at them. Nothing that's too extravagant or too expensive, but that it will fit them properly. Comfort, okay? In the sizes for pretty much everyone from the smallest to the largest, because that's the problem. If you ever gone into a shoe store, if you ever gone into a shoe company, shoe store and stuff like that, and you're wondering why don't they have enough of my size, I'll give you a hint from when I was still working with shoes. A lot of the cases that come in and everything that's shipped, you get X amount of sizes. Most of the mid-range sizes, like say from about 7.5 to about 9, you'll get plenty of. Anything above 9, like 9.5, 10, 11, and vice versa. The other way, 6, 6.5, 7, 6.5, 6, 5. You won't get a lot of. And that's a problem because you'll run out of those immediately. It's not that you get a lot of people that get calls for them. Is that if you have high volume customers that come in, like something like Herald Square, for example. Herald Square, you get a lot of people in there. Obviously, pretty much almost every size will run out very quickly. The stuff that you don't have a lot of inventory on will run out first, obviously. But there's nothing done to refill them immediately. That's the thing. Refill takes time, even for a flagship store. Much as you bark on the buyer and says, "Hey, we need more," it's like, well, get it when we get it. On some occasions they won't take your call. Oh. But look at the clothing designs. Look at the clothing. Look at the shoes. Look at the handbags. As much as people say, well, there's some cool stuff out there. Coach and this brand and that brand. But that's the high brands. Obviously, they have the option to be that style. The stuff that's like, what the average person will purchase. The brands that are just basically the generic brands or a particular brand that, it's not that expensive. It starts out expensive, but then it becomes more reasonable in time after being in the store for quite some time. You have to the point that those designs are not the way it used to. They try to copy the designer stuff, but they don't do a good job of it. The fit is not right. And a lot of people say, well, it's because it's made in China. It's part of it. It's a lot of things because it goes by the way it's designed. The design nature. This is the same conversation I had with the shoes. If you design a shoe that it's a certain cut, a certain way, certain look, and it's basically going to be tighter in certain areas because you want to maintain that look, this is what's going to happen. A lot of people are not going to fit in properly. They're going to complain about it. And it's the same thing with clothes, same thing with jeans. And I've noticed, last couple of years, I've had to go up inside, and it's not because of my weight. I've had to go up in size because the cut of the jean has become more tighter. And we're talking full cuts. We're not talking like something like fitted jeans or something like that. I'm talking jeans that are basically supposed to be like boot cuts or wide calf or stuff like that. It's become more tighter. Why is that? Because they're trying to give it a better design look, obviously. But that's to the point. I mean, that's even in the big and tall situation. You have that same nature. And the other half is, why is big and tall so much more expensive? They say, well, they got to put more material on it. Oh, come on. Does petite get charged a lot more? No, it doesn't. Does junior get charged a lot more for this? No, it doesn't. It's just an excuse to charge more money to people. I mean, I've seen some ridiculous prices for shirts, for men's shirts in the big and tall situation. And, you have stores like Macy's that don't even bother with, unless it's a designer type, with big and tall. I mean, you have stores like JCPenney that's, they're still doing some big and tall business. Kohl's does a little bit, but everything else, even Macy, you got to do, if you want big and tall, you got to go online. Plain and simple. Which allows company like, I think, what's it called, Big XL or something like that, to charge the prices that they do in mall stores. There are stores out there catered to big and tall guys. And it's the same thing with the big ladies as well to that situation. But they don't. But the guys get charged a little bit more than the ladies. Think about that for a minute. It comes down to that. The industry needs to change. It needs a revamp. Department stores like Macy's, Kohl's, and many others, yeah, they need to fix themselves, but not the way they're doing now. They need to start to go back in time to the way it used to be before the 80s and look at what they can do to bring back that customer to the store. Yeah, Amazon's out there, on there. But if you want to maintain yourself, give yourself something that people will come in and knock your door down to buy. And I'm not talking designer at all. So comment. Let me know your thoughts about this whole situation with Macy's, that they're closing these stores. They're closing an iconic long I know we went a little long on it, but, I'm telling you, I could write a book on this. To the situation, because it basically took a part of my life to the point, I worked these stores. I know these stores, the ins and outs of these stores, and basically the business that they run, it's not the same anymore. Not anymore. It's like electronics. I did work part of electronics. We can go into the electronics end. How freaking companies like Circuit City died out. How Best Buy is what they call it, the internet showroom. People don't buy there like they used to. So comment, like, share this video, and hopefully today's the day I've earned your subscription. So until next time, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check out Otaku Thursday every Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, here on YouTube and on Rumble.